Welcome back to Full Throttle on Unprecedented TV, the show fighting for British drivers' rights. I'm Paul Naylor, Director of Communications for the Alliance of British Drivers, and we're here battling unfair taxes, restrictive speed limits, and the net zero policies that are hitting motorists hard.
And I'm Gregory, Policy Director of the Alliance of British Drivers. For decades now in ABD, we've pushed back against the anti-car agenda with common sense and facts. Tonight we're tackling the so-called climate crisis head-on and showing how it's used to give fake legitimacy to attacking drivers' freedoms.
Joining us is Paul Burgess, a retired chartered engineer with decades in water resources and environmental planning. Paul's built a strong following on his YouTube channel, Climate Realism by Paul Burgess, where he debunks climate alarmism using real data and observations, not models. He's appeared on podcasts and shows calling out the hype around CO2 and net zero. So Paul, it will be great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Right. Nice to be on the show. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Paul. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself before we start?
Yeah, okay. I'm 81 years old, so I'm an oldie. I did my master's in water resources technology in 1970, and I built my first climate model in 1970. I became involved. I'm a passionate environmentalist, so I was a chartered water resource engineer and a chartered environmental engineer, and so my work really looked at the practical aspects. So, but the trouble is, if the science isn't there, I had to do the science as well. Mm-hmm. And technology is just an application of science, that's all. Yes. So I span quite a wide width. And I became upset. Well, I've always been upset, I suppose, with the government. But I became very upset with the beginning of net zero and so on. So now I write papers. I've written a major paper recently. In fact, recently, the most important paper of my life has been written, because I've been able to explain with precision every year's temperature since 1982, and since 1983. So I've got 42 years of temperatures without any curve fitting, without any fiddling, changed by simply looking at the oceans, the clouds, the sun, and CO2 as well. But CO2 turned out to be what natural science says. It turned out to be the effect of a doubling of CO2 would cause a 1 degree centigrade warming effect. It doesn't mean to say be warmer by that, because there's other negatives. But the effect of it is 1 degree centigrade warming in 175 years. All of that would be beneficial, of course, because that would move the tree line up about 80 miles in the north and covering millions of acres of good land, as it were. It'd move everything up, and the world would be far better for it. And so my recent work also shows the evidence is all pointing to that, and not any feedback, which the alarmists claim. And so I've done many TV shows on GB News before it became more woke, and and so on. So that's what I do, and I have a YouTube channel where I've almost 300 videos now. I also do some on economics, because I'm into trying to the madness of what we're in on economics, but 90% is climate. In terms of technology, looking at the grid, I mean, things like, I'll give you an example, Ed Miliband announced, I live in Wales because I'm subject to 20 mile an hour zones a lot. Yeah. Even in the country, I get 20 mile an hour zones in Wales. And the most unpopular rule in Wales, totally against the wish of the people, by the way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I look at things like Ed Miliband says, look, in North Wales, 800 jobs created for burying CO2. It's marvellous. So I looked that up, and it's over £800 million a year cost. So fine. So for even the office cleaner, it's £1 million a year subsidy. Yeah, everyone. Yeah. And so how much CO2 do they bury? Well, they bury an amount which is made up by the rest of the world in 39.5 hours. So I do. I'm a so-and-so. I look at things like that, and I do a video then, and I always introduce humor and everything into it, because you can make it more impactful that way. So I spend time on the video, and this is the madness of it. And it's not 800 jobs. What they've done is take over £800 million a year away from real jobs. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally negative in every way. So when I look at costs, they'll say that just as they've done in AR7 round, they've said gas is £118 per megawatt hour. It isn't. It's actually £55. The carbon taxes make it that. Even today in Parliament, the Prime Minister said we've reduced energy costs but what they've done is they've moved some of the carbon taxes into general taxation. So they haven't changed anything. All they've done is move
the tax.
Yeah, they're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, but the amount of money is the same.
And that's exactly the theme of one of my videos. I've got the Titanic coming, halfway down, and they're arranging deck chairs on it because that's what.
I'm gonna have to get that one. I'm gonna have to watch that.
The new paper you really ought to see and the video on it. And I've done a simplified video on everything on it. So I've done different levels, and I've done many videos after it because as you analyze it, because why is my model so exact? And the reason was that the actual model explains a mechanical process where when the ocean warms and cools, it changes the cloud cover. Yeah. And just 2% in cloud cover accounts for around about 75% of the warming since 1983.
Right. Well, you kind of touched on the first question that we've got here.
The IPCC assumes there's no change in cloud cover, no change in solar activity. It's all static as far as they're concerned. But of course, it isn't. They're just ignoring the variation that is feeding in.
Yeah. On average, in my model, what I did is I took the data from 1900, and I worked out a formula where solar was 19% of the effect on average. The Indian dipole was so much. The Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation was so much.
The Pacific decadal one,
My model it isn't a model really, it's an index. And what it does is it looks up all the figures each year, and then it calculates what the temperature would be, and it's spot on every year. So it doesn't change, but if you take solar as 19%, that's only a weighting. So you actually look up the real solar and adjust it. Are you with me?
Yeah.
That's how it's done. And anyone can check it every year. And it's so good that people said it can't be true. And so I've done 25 major papers, if you like, proving, or trying to destroy it is what I did. So the IPCC, don't forget the scientists of the IPCC themselves aren't that bad, because I start my talks off showing a table 1212, I think page 1856. Which is no more droughts because of it, no difference in storms, no difference in the sea level that's any significant, no difference in drought, in hurricanes. And I say, well, who says this? And then I say, actually, it's the IPCC. But how do they say the opposite? And they do it in the summary because that's political. It's not about climate, it's about control and a transfer of wealth to the third world. That's all it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And as you say, the IPCC scientists themselves don't say anything alarming about climate crisis. It's it's the summaries for policymakers that are the ones that have all the alarming rubbish in them.
Spot on. It's that summary. And if you look at how I did a video on that, they'd all live in one room, one representative per government. So there's 180 odd people in the room. And these aren't scientists, by the way. And they're just political appointments. And then you have a green or red light for each sentence, yes? And it's all about the transfer of wealth to most of the people in the room are third world. So it's all about that. It's got nothing to do with science. Nothing.
No.
All right. And they get away with it. But our government today, on question time, the Prime Minister saying, the reduction in fuel cost, as we've just explained, it's just a transfer of tax. You haven't reduced the price of fuel. And the biggest problem is this. I'll tell you the biggest problem we're facing is this year, for the first time in 2025, even solar had constraint payments, which means we pay to turn them off, And they're quadrupling that, and they're trebling the wind, roughly. And if you treble wind above what it is today, you've got so much excess wind at times that you've got to store it, but there is no storage system. There is. I was water resource engineer for Dynamic Pump Storage in North Wales. Now, that is 9.1 gigawatt hours, Now, in 2022 and 2018, we had two what we call wind droughts. One was 18 days, and the other was 22 days, funnily enough, matches the years almost. And you'd need tens of thousands of gigawatt hours, and we got 9.1. It doesn't make sense when you do the simple sums. And so I do video after video exposing this. That's what I do. So the IPCC are a political organisation bent on control and a transfer of wealth. End of subject.
Yes. Yeah. But you can see that when Guterres, or whatever he's called, goes and stands in the Maldives, was it, or wherever, up to his knees in the water, saying, "Oh, these islands are sinking." And actually, when you actually look at the evidence, the islands aren't sinking; they're actually coming up out of the ocean, and the land area of the islands is growing.
Well, I'm lucky because I sail the world in my own boat with my wife. And we went through the Indian Ocean, bit of the Indian Ocean, over the Atlantic and through the Pacific. And Tuvalu, the one you're talking about, he's standing to his knees, is Tuvalu. It's grown 2.9%, right?
Yeah.
It's totally fake, right?
Yeah.
Totally. The Great Barrier Reef is healthier than it's ever been on record. You know, it goes on. But I don't just take the headlines in my stuff. I actually try to give, the actual hard facts. I analyze each one properly.
Yeah. But I mean, that the coral thing cost Paul Ridd his job, even though he was telling the truth about the Great Barrier Reef.
Absolutely.
That was just disgusting.
Yeah. Well, in actual fact, I had a conversation. I've got 10 grandchildren, and the next to youngest one, he was about 8 or 9. Yeah. And I can't keep up with all their ages. They keep growing every year. Anyway, it was about that. And he went on to me on the phone. He moaned about the Great Barrier Reef. And I said, no. And I said, in actual fact, it's the healthiest it's ever been on record. No, Grandad. So I thought, I'll make a little video for him. So I made an 8 or 10 minute video. It featured Peter Ridge. And I made that, and he got it. And I said, and about a week or two later, I said, did you watch it? Yes. I said, what do you think? And he said, well, I wasn't happy. So I said, why weren't you happy? And he said, well, I was wrong. And I said, you should be delighted. Yeah. And he said, no, how can you be delighted if you're wrong? So I said, well, the choice is, lad, being wrong for the rest of your life or being put right. And everyone's going to be wrong, but you've got to be put right. And I've just done you a hell of a favor, sort of adding his help. I've done you a favor. And what science is about, science without that skepticism isn't science anymore.
Absolutely. It's a belief system then. It's like a religion.
I know. I go against professors. I was on GB News, and it was quite a funny story because GB News will phone me up a day maybe before, and say, we want you on Saturday. Yeah, I went on for almost a year. And they want me on Saturday. I'm expecting it. What's the subject? The subject is planes, turbulence, climate change is causing more turbulence, because someone had just been hurt on a plane. It was big news, So I thought, so I looked it up, and the FAA, that's a Federal Aviation Authority in America, keep a record, because above a certain level, pilots have to report it. Two types of turbulence: clear air, you can't see, and the one you can see, you got radar, you avoid it. So if you look at the graph now, the one that you can see dropping off a cliff, avoiding them, but the clear air, no real change. So I had the graph. Now in the green room, there was going to be 4 people on the show. So there were 2 on my side. The other person didn't know anything actually on my side, and the other 2. And this lady was the prime one. So I showed them a graph before we went in. So before we went in, I converted them. So instead of a debate, we had everyone agreeing. And then the professor got very fed up. So he posted on Facebook. This is the professor from Reading University. So he posted on Facebook, Paul Burgess is so-and-so. And what he went on about, Paul Burgess is far right. He supports Tommy Robinson. He does this. I went on and said, can we discuss the facts? Because you looked at a tiny little bit of the Atlantic with a model. I looked at the facts. And in science, it's observation. That's king, and there's no way around it. And he banned me, and then other people stepped in. He banned them. He ended up banning everyone. So I thought, you deserve to be exposed. So I made a program about the Reading University professor who won't debate his own subject with me. And that's common, by the way. That is very, very common.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's typical. If they can't argue or counter your science, then they'll just do an ad hominem attack.
Correct.
And smear you.
I was on a radio show in the Isle of Man because I've been helping the Isle of Man try to stop their net zero madness on the grounds that if I can stop a small island doing it. At least that's a start, isn't it? So I got involved in both Jersey. I was invited to Jersey on the Isle of Man. And I went on the radio TV thing in the morning, which is on for about 30 minutes. And I was against the Green Party leader. Now, this is the first time
Polanski, Zach Polanski?
No, the Green Party leader of the Isle of Man.
Oh, right, okay.
And the first post afterwards, after we finished, said, well, that's put the Isle of Man Green Party back 20 years. all she did was attack me on my politics. Nothing else. She said I shouldn't be allowed on the island. She tried to stop the hall. They had a huge meeting of the public. I mean, there was overflowing the hall. A huge meeting of the public. And I was trying to stop the madness. And it was, I mean, they're truly mad because everyone else in wind farms would have a yield. The average yield of an onshore wind farm is about 26, 27% in the UK. They've got 75%. You wouldn't believe it. And just ridiculous engineering, just ridiculous. So I go on shows like that. And then what I do is I make a program about them and stop and explain and stop and explain. It's quite good fun, but no one will argue anywhere. But I'm almost on the point of giving it up, actually, because I don't feel I just come out of the Advance UK party because they're not into it either. They're trying to block and censor and everything, and I'm trying to stop all of net zero. So all of net zero means the farming in Wales. We have to set aside 20% of land, 10% for trees, and 10% for wilding. You can't run a farm with that gone. So they give a subsidy. But what the effect of that is the government controls the farm.
Yes.
It's not viable without it.
Yeah. And by controlling the farm, they control the food supply, ultimately.
Correct. Everything.
Yeah.
So it's quite funny. But, I have to look. I've done 300 videos. There's no charge for my Substack. There's no charge for my channel. No one pays anything to me. I don't make any money. I lose money seriously out of it. Sometimes I get my expenses covered, like if I go to Jersey, or part of my expenses is the best way.
Yeah.
If I go to the Isle of Man. And sometimes it costs me £1,000, to go and do a 20-minute talk in Parliament because it was 2 days hotel and everything. And so I don't charge for anything. And I thought, really being sincere in doing it. But I don't really influence politicians. They're all thick. They're all stupid. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Well, most of them have only read PPE or classics or something. There's not a scientist. If you took the House of Parliament, turned it upside down and shook it, you might find one scientist out of the 650. No more than that. Yeah, one is Lord Peter Lilly, who actually read chemistry.
Yeah. And actually, Andrew Bridgen with the COVID thing, standing there in Parliament, reading "Don't inject 6-month-old babies," and there's no evidence for it. And so, there's. In fact, my last video just published makes this point that there's no one in government who understands the science. That's just this science. Anything, I used to represent Wales for water resources. I was head of water resource planning in Wales. And also all the hydrology, all the weather stations, everything. And I sat on a government quango, and they were developing a program, and so I just went away and we wrote it. And by the time we got back, they just finished a feasibility study, and the feasibility study was 25k. This is back in the early 70s. It was 25,000, and it said it'll take 2 years to do, and it'll cost $250,000. So I then handed up and said, it's done, it's finished, and we'll charge you 10,000 if you want it. And we sold it everywhere. So we closed the quango. So the only quango I've been on, I managed to stop existing. Just did the work.
You need to join more quangos, John, Paul.
But with motoring, I did a paper. Now, this is going to shock you. I have a Tesla. That's going to shock you, isn't it? Because I hate driving. And when I'm on the main road or anything, it drives me everywhere, which is bloody wonderful. But I'm totally honest about it. And I'm also a bit of a nerd. I like all the nerdy stuff. So I just don't want that imposed on anyone. But I did a paper recently and looked at the costs of EVs against diesel and petrol.
Yeah, I've got it on the screen here,
Yeah, they work out about 47% per mile more expensive to run because you've got much higher insurance, you've got much higher depreciation, and the actual cost of the fuel itself, if you haven't got home charging at night with me at a cheap rate. So there's no way they're cheaper at any point, even if you're home charging. For most people, way more expensive, right? And on top of that, with the luxury car tax, which I haven't added in, that alone now over 6 pence a mile for the average mileage of 7,000, and 6 pence a mile over that. And so I've done an analysis of all this in the paper, and it's 47% more expensive. How can you expect people to do that? I mean, it's madness. There's really no subsidies at all. And if it worked by itself, it works by itself in the free market. But what we've ruined the motor industry. We just totally ruined it.
Yes. And that seems to be almost deliberate, because all they're doing is opening the door for China to flood the country with cheap electric cars built using coal power, and raping the Earth's resources to get all the minerals that they need to make the batteries and the charging infrastructure as well, because you need a massive increase in the grid capacity to fuel the electric cars, and that has a huge hydrocarbon footprint.
Huge, yes. But I'm not bothered about. I want more CO2, so I've got no problem.
Absolutely, that's what I can't understand. Why are we actually trying to squirrel CO2 away in the ground when actually we want it in the atmosphere, where it improves global greening, and it actually means that plant yields increase, and so the world can feed itself better.
Yes, I know we don't, because it's not about the CO2. It's about control of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about everything. The 20 mile an hour zone. I mean, I was out of Swansea, and I'm in the country. There's green hedges on both sides, and there's fields, and I'm still in the 20. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning. But you don't, and then it doesn't actually mean 20, because if someone obeys it in front of you, you end up doing 16 and 17.
Yes.
You get a queue, and it actually probably gives off more pollution than
absolutely. If it's a conventional car, absolutely, the fuel efficiency goes down, the emissions go up. It's madness. And the time wasted, nobody costs in the wasted economic time, which is colossal.
So interesting, because I've got a research assistant, my first and only, from the Isle of Man, who's a terrific guy, and he pointed out on their radio TV thing, he pointed out that they're introducing 20 everywhere without authority, by the way. He pointed out that their one and only supermarket has home deliveries, and they'd have to add, you worked out with them how many vans they'd have to add because of the 20 mile an hour zones. How much extra that would cost for the home deliveries. And it was quite significant. So he's trying to point out, when you do these things, there's all sorts of roll-on problems. And there's more pollution. There's unnecessary wear and tear on cars. There's extra cost in all sorts of ways. Look, I always say this. Way back at the Industrial Revolution, I know there were Luddites who opposed the steam engines driving the looms. But that is what gave us productivity, is what gave us our wealth today. And energy is fundamental to wealth. And I've done a paper on the costs of CO2 on all this net zero, and allowing for the opportunity cost between 700 billion and 1.1 trillion a year to the economy. I'm not kidding you. It's as high as that. When you look at everything, the paper looks at everything. But a big part is how much better we'd be off if we were going the other way. Instead of going down, you're going up. And that's the opportunity cost. It's
the whole ideology is anti-human. It's opposed to human flourishing, and wants us to actually regress economically back towards serfdom. Really.
Totally. No, absolutely. No, not really. Really. I mean, it's back. It really is back to serfdom. It really is back to nothing. It really is everyone being impoverished. It really is that. They don't have any thought about it. I actually gave a speech for the 15-minute city outside Oxford University in Oxford with a huge In fact, there were so many people there that the loudspeaker system didn't cover it all. That was on the 15-minute city. And then I came back and sat outside with a desk outside the gates of Trinity College with a big banner behind me saying, come and debate me on net zero. And not one single professional, a 19-year-old student came, that was it, in the whole day. No one, all the professors walked by you. No, because in fairness to them, they lose their jobs if they speak out. Yeah, they become Peter Ridds if they speak out. But then the whole industry wouldn't. Before all this started, the number of people looking at climate change was a handful throughout the world. Now it's a major industry. And it's a fake industry. So it's all going to go in the end. I mean, there's no opportunity to go.
But it shames me. I read chemistry at St Catherine's, Oxford, but this was before universities were places of indoctrination. They taught you how to think, whereas now they teach you what to think.
Correct. Terrible. The clash I had inside the party I've just left was with a Cambridge chap, and I just had to expose it because he actually studies extraterrestrial life, if you like. That's his subject.
Oh, right, okay.
He managed to get called a climate professor when he was a junior research assistant, and he didn't call himself that, but other people did. And it really is amazing, the world, And I sometimes lie in bed in the morning and I think, shall I pack this in? Because it's like all your body of things,
I actually think now, Paul, that we're gradually turning the corner. I think the election of Trump was a major slap in the face for all these crazies, because whatever you think about his high-handedness and his abruptness, he's bang on the money in terms of what's going on with climate science. He said it's a hoax, and it is a hoax. It's a complete utter hoax.
And his stating that CO2 is not a pollutant is a fundamental bedrock, because it's a fundamental bedrock, and it's actually what they couldn't agree with me with. The people wouldn't allow me to even discuss it inside the party, and I left because that wouldn't even be discussed. Because of that, I left because I wasn't allowed to question.
Have they done no rudimentary biology? Do they not understand the importance of carbon dioxide?
No, because
oxygen for our existence.
I was in the energy group, and when they tried, I wanted to change to the net zero group, so because just the whole of net zero, not just pure energy part. And they wouldn't allow me to even debate it. They wouldn't allow me to discuss it. I mean, they'd say, "No, Paul, you can't discuss that." Bang, and it was ridiculous. I was in a ridiculous situation.
One of our
didn't leave because of that. I tried to stick that. I left because when I asked two simple questions about policy, just questions, I was stopped by the leader inside the WhatsApp group for all the college members, and I was told, "You've broken the Constitution," when the Constitution actually says he shouldn't interfere with me. Right? It was the other way around. And I thought, I'm stopped from discussing fundamental questions. I'm stopped. There's ignorance abounds, So it really does. So when you're talking, if you know your subject, and obviously, you gentlemen know way more than the normal people I discuss things with. But when you know your subject, you can quickly suss out the other side. And there was no knowledge at all. And so, they didn't even want to stop wind farms, but they didn't understand how. Because if you're going to stop the industry that's now got 20-year contracts, you've got to figure out, I've got 4 or 5 ways I've got, which I haven't announced, of how we can control that wind industry without having constant litigation in the courts on contracts. Because they'll say, "Oh, you broke your contract." Well, we can't do that. But there are other ways of doing it. And I'll give you one example, and it's a simple one, is wind farms kill so many birds. And the fine, by law today, if I killed a blackbird, the fine is unlimited, right? The sentence, I think, is in jail is 2 years, but the fine is unlimited. And so all you have to do is people going around gathering the birds and making sure they get fined 50 and 100,000 quid. That's all you have to do. And environmentally, they're a disaster, and it's for bats, it's £5,000 a bat is the fine. But
Okay.
for birds, it's unlimited, except for a few birds, which it's okay to. But that is the situation. So if you actually applied that, law, you could control them, full stop. But everything's fake about it.
Yeah, but I mean, it certainly needs to be done, because as we saw from the Iberia thing last year, once you get above about 18-20% of wind and solar, you unbalance the grid.
No, it's nowhere near that. You don't. That's way over the top. Even 50 is risking. So I disagree on that. The inertia, which is what we're talking about.
Yes.
So the public know is if you make coal, if you produce energy from coal or gas or nuclear, you end up turning a steam turbine with a bloody big flywheel, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah.
In a car, you have a flywheel to even out the cylinder strokes. Yes, you don't have. And that inertia that carries on is what you need in electricity. And without it, you'll fail. Now, if they say wind costs, let's say £120 a megawatt hour, they've got to add on the inertia cost, which is what I do in my papers and in my videos.
Yeah.
But then you've got to add on the constraint costs. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is right. And then you've got to add on the backup costs. And backup costs are more than just simple. They're not just the gas. If you're going to have a gas station running as a backup, you've got to have it running. Normally they use open cycle, which is 50% less efficient. And then you've got to keep it running. And when you're keeping it running ready to build up, you're using half the fuel you'd normally use anyway. And you've got to build a totally separate grid, 12 billion a year on that, to the existing grid. Yeah. I mean, it adds up. So the 120 quid for wind ends up at 200 like that. I've done the papers on it. So inertia is critical, but it's not nowhere near that. And in fact, France has just come out and says it was an inertia problem, and it got stopped in France because they've got the nuclear, the big basic nuclear.
Yeah, I think about 75% of the generating capacity is nuclear, isn't it?
Yeah, that's like 70% or so. So that inertia stopped it. But we're going to be into blackouts in the UK.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, we had Catherine Porter on. Yeah, she's the energy expert, and she is coming back on to talk about this because we are headed, as you say, for guaranteed blackouts because Miliband is a lunatic.
He is a lunatic, and we are guaranteed it. I did a paper looking forward, the coming energy disaster. It's called. I looked forward 10 years on their plans, and what they're basing it on is all this excess. Because there's no. Let me make a statement. There is no such thing as energy storage for long term. None at all. You can take a battery farm overnight, buy in cheap energy at 3 o'clock in the morning and sell it the next day. You can do that, right? But in terms of the amount of energy for a typical wind drought of say 18 days, where the wind is so low, next to nothing, you'd need tens of thousands of gigawatt hours, and you haven't got that. And what they're going to do is make hydrogen. Now, hydrogen, I did all the calculations right the way through to get the electricity, 19 times the cost of gas.
Because you can't store the damn stuff. To actually extract it, purify it, and store it. By the time you've burned it to get energy, you've expended more energy to actually do that. Yeah,
my paper and videos on that goes in from the manufacture of the hydrogen, where you lose more energy than you put in by a mile. And then you've got to transport it. Now, and the transportation isn't easy. You can't use ordinary metal or ordinary pipes.
No, because it leaks through them or it reacts with them and creates hydrides.
It goes right the way through the metal and so on. So that's when I worked out each stage of the cost to get the electricity, 19 times the cost of gas. And that's not viable. And the whole thing isn't viable. So when you're heading for a war like this, so I've done all the grid analyses in great detail. I'm a bit. I look at a wider aspect than Catherine. She's an absolute expert inside that.
Yes,
and she's great.
She is. Yeah.
I look wider than that. And therefore my papers tend to be a wider than just the strict grid, as it were.
Yes.
But I do all the grid as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, sorry, I'm talking too much.
That's all right. So, Paul, you've looked closely at temperature records from 1983 right through to the recent years. and taking account of natural drivers like oceanic pulses, ENSO, Indian dipole, and solar variability. How does your method line up with satellite data far better than the mainstream models? And what does it tell us about what's really driving temperature changes?
Right. First of all, it's not a model. And it was a friend who pointed this out to me, who was an absolute novice in this. And he said, it's more of an index you've got because you're not predicting the future. Because people said to me, well, predict next year. I said, yeah, tell me how much solar we're going to have. Tell me the Indian dipole or not, then I can tell you. So what it does is if you know those different readings, it does it. And it's within an accuracy of 0.02 degrees centigrade. 200 degrees centigrade. And when it happened, when I put the model together, and for the first run, put it on the screen with a graph of the satellite temperatures and this, and I couldn't see the difference. You could have knocked me off the chair because I knew I'd failed. That never happens in science. You don't get that in science. And someone said to me when I showed it, just the graph, they said curve fitting, because you can make up a formula to fit, you know. What you do then is you take the 4 decades and you mix them up and it still works. And then you do this and it still works. Then you go through all the tests there are. And so the 6-page paper ended up 138 pages. Still survived. But then the next paper, which got published after, and there's a whole series now, is why does it work? And it's very simple. Let's take it from the warming phase. When the oceans over the whole globe, on average, warm, they will reduce cloud cover, right? They help the cloud to disappear a bit. But there's a lag, and this is critical. It takes 1 to 3 years after the warming to see the full effect. The less clouds let more radiation in. Now, the radiation coming in from the sun is 200 times more powerful than from the atmosphere. And I would say it's like trying to heat up your bath tonight. Run a cold bath tonight, get the wife's hairdryer out and try and heat it up. It'll take a long time. Yes? So that's the principle. And then, because if it was the CO2, as they say, and my paper and video makes this clear, so I've got a nasty CO2 molecule appearing, you know, and it says now basically the atmosphere warms. That would only warm the top millimetre or two. You know, of the ocean, and the atmosphere hasn't got, when a cloud comes over you when you're sunbathing, you're cold immediately. The atmosphere, it insulates you, and we allow for that, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't keep warmth in the atmosphere. You can lose warmth in that atmosphere within 2 seconds and you'll feel it. And so it can't have a lag, so there's not enough quantity there maintained to give you the lag, and the lag is critical in the analysis. So it's a mechanical construction afterwards that now backs up all the work. It's the most, I couldn't believe it. I rate it as the best work of my life, you know. And I've done lots of things. I've done lots of big things, and just because it's so powerful. And I had one bloke, and I published a paper with Tom Nelson. I published a paper before that, but I appeared with Tom Nelson explaining it. And when I did that, a few people contacted me, and one contacted me and had a real go at it. And he said, hope not to offend you. I said, look, you can't offend me, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'd love to know I'm wrong, because I don't want to carry on with that work if I'm wrong. And he asked a question, I answered. And in the end, he said, Paul, you've got to publish this in the mainstream papers. I said, nope, I'm not going to. I'm not going to tie myself up with that academic lot for 2 or 3 years. No. I don't want to. I haven't got time. I'm 81. So if they want to have a go at it, fine. You know, and if I'll answer anyone, anywhere, in depth, right? And it gets hard technical underneath, and so that's it. So in the sense that I can predict why 23 was so warm, I can predict why we have the plateaus. I can predict every single curve and shape of the satellite temperatures. Right?
So you said before that you almost couldn't believe that you'd come across this formula, if you like, the index, and so you rigorously tested it over and over again, trying to sort of like prove it wrong. And were you getting a bit annoyed with yourself that you hit the jackpot first time?
Yeah, well, and no, not just that, because hitting the jackpot first time, I mean that exact. You've normally got a big error about, you know, that exact. no, there's something wrong here. There's got to be something wrong here. But it was a feeling as I threw the things at it. Well, I know I'm going to prove myself wrong here. Then no, actually, and then of course that volcano happened in 92 or 91. And that was a big volcano, and the sulfates actually reduced the temperature. Yeah. So imagine this curve coming up. So I've now got my temperature here, and the noise. Now the noise is all random and proven to be random around it. Yes. And then suddenly the noise is no longer random. Suddenly the noise under my curve is just like the effect of the volcano, but that noise is without any negative feedback. Now,
is it almost like an echo?
Yeah, it's imagine, well, just going like that, because that's my prediction, because I don't know when the volcanoes are going to come.
Yeah.
And now you get the actual temperatures. I'm lining up, and suddenly, instead of lining up, it does that and back.
Yeah.
That is the effect. And when I threw this at artificial intelligence, I throw my papers at that, and I say, prove me wrong and things. And it said on that is such an exceptional test that it's right, because the climate models actually fiddle it afterwards. They don't win. So I can't predict, and I won't pretend that no one can predict when the volcano is going to happen and the effect.
No.
So I can predict. Now I've actually already, and I mentioned it on my latest, not out yet, but I did a podcast with Tom Nelson last week. And at the very end, I said, I'm going to show you something against my better judgment, but I've extended it back to 1900. And I've got it spot on. Right? Now, why I didn't do that initially? He said, why not? I said, I didn't do it initially because I refined the process on that. So you get what we call circularity. You're just proving your own thing. What we call out of sample. So I took it out of sample from 82 because it wasn't determined in that, and it worked. And now taking it back, and then I test for circularity and everything. And so that's coming out. And then secretly, I've never said this before, I took it back as far as we can go to 1600, but the temperatures there are beginning to get wavy. And the trouble is, when I extended it back to 1900, I couldn't trust what we call the Hadley data set. I didn't have a satellite. I couldn't trust the Hadley, so I had to bring in the Connolly's work with the urban heat island effect into it. And then I got it right. So it really is funny, some of the tests I did and how it worked out. And even that shows only 1 degree centigrade for a doubling of CO2, which is what I'm a member of the CO2 Coalition, I'm a member of Clintel and so on. And Professor William Happer came up with that 1 degree. He came up with that 1 degree, which really both sides don't disagree with anymore, because that's what we call a pure CO2 doubling. And it's the feedback that's the difference. So I have to explain something else to people. When I'm giving talks, it's quite good because people ask you questions that give you an answer in a different way. So I looked at once, I was on the screen, they have 100 different climate models, all these grey lines, So they take an average. Actually, they only 60 of them, but they take an average and they say, that's it, that's the average feedback. Well, hold on here. The science and the logic is this. Every one of those 100 could be wrong. That's possible. But only one could be right. So you're taking an average of what we at least know are 99 wrong ones. And that's not science. You don't do it.
No, absolutely.
Nothing to do with science. Consensus. No. And I always start off my talks with that. I start off my talk saying CO2 is an incredible greenhouse molecule, which it is. It's just losing its effect, on a logarithmic scale. I explain that. I explain without it, you'd all be dead. I have a meter with you that goes up normally we get to spin a hole, we'll get to 7,000 or 8,000 ppm, no problem with all the people there breathing out 40,000. So I do all of this. And so you look at mechanisms to help. And the biggest reward is when kids come up to me to thank me for helping them, And funnily enough, in the Isle of Man, because they'd arranged the radio TV thing, they'd arranged the big hall meeting, they'd arranged meetings all over the island, and they also arranged a talk at the school for me to debate against a climate alarmist, to put it bluntly. And then before I got there, they couldn't find a climate alarmist, right? And stand against me. So I said, look, I'll appear by myself, but I'm not going to teach my views. I'm going to teach what science is. And
Yeah. Yeah.
no consensus and all that. So I wasn't going to actually give my views. Now, it was the debating society of the school that asked me to be there. And then the day before I arrived, the government came in and cancelled it. No, won't allow it. And then a few days after that, they sent in 2 or 3 people to educate them on the climate science.
Indoctrinate them on the climate science.
The ideology.
Propaganda. And so again, all that is on my videos, all those meetings. I've got a whole history, and almost 300 now. And everything like that's on my videos. And everything I do when I'm doing it is, I mean, this sign behind me, this is the sun at the moment. And black hole, there's a black hole coming in there. And actually, it's called The Day the Sun Turned Black, which happened in many thousands of years ago, actually. And it's a discussion with Valentina Zarkova, and I've done it. I'm just editing it, and so I've got to make it so it's not too scientific, which is difficult with Valentina.
It is extremely difficult. Yeah.
And so that's what I tried to do. So it is the day the sun turned black, because there's these huge holes and lots of significance of them and so on.
Yeah.
So in the end, then all the energy comes from the sun. I mean, a tiny bit from within the earth, but you can pretty well ignore that. It's nearly all from the sun.
Yeah.
So why do you think CO2 has been made out to be such a villain? Where did that all come from?
Well, it started with Greta Thunberg's ancestor, didn't it? In 1880 or something.
Centenarius.
Yes, that's right. It started. And so that wasn't coincidence that Greta became the mouthpiece, by the way.
Yeah.
But it started with that. And it wasn't to do with the control then. It was to do with pure science in a sense. But if you're going to have something to control people, if you go back to the WEF, etc., the World Economic Forum and that, if you're going to have something to control people, CO2 is the gas of life. Without it, we'd all be dead. What better way to control people than something that you can build up? It's something you can't see. I actually, by the way, talking about things you can't see, I sailed through the Pacific plastic garbage patch. And when I was in Panama, I plotted a course through it to make sure, right? To make sure I went through it.
Yeah.
Right?
And was it there?
No. It's not there. And of course, what they said is the particles have become so small now you can't see it. Right? They specialize in polar bears that not many people have in their back gardens, but which are booming, or they specialize in ice melting again. They specialize in things like you're not going to see any snow anymore. You name it. And I say to people, every single prediction they've made has come out wrong. Everyone. You've got someone, I do it on my videos. I've got a man on my videos saying the end of the world's nigh, or the placard outside your house, walking up and down. Now, if he's done that year in, year out, why are you still believing in him?
Absolutely.
Why do you still believe that? But they do. I had a neighbor who, when I first met him, we're not friends now, but when I first met him, he said, well, the wind's always blowing somewhere. So I said, but then you'd have to put all the wind things there. You'd have to have the 100% capacity of it everywhere, which means, no. And the wind, by the way, doesn't always blow somewhere. You get a high over Europe and there's nothing. And don't forget, things happen like this year. Miliband's Nesso lowered the lowered the wind farm for offshore and their load factor by 25%. So overnight, by the way, we've realized now we're knocking 25% of the energy we're getting. Overnight. And funny enough, in the Isle of Man, I was arguing on that figure with them. I was arguing about it with them because it was just unrealistic load factors.
Yes.
And then I looked at the finances of all the wind and turbine people. I mean, they're all on the knees. They're 95% down.
Yes.
Why is it that all the shares in the turbine people, in the wind farm people, has all collapsed? Why? And the reason goes down to Gordon Hughes, but you should get him on. Professor Gordon Hughes from Glasgow University. he analysed all the accounts of them, and basically the wind farms don't last as long as they say.
Yeah.
And so an offshore wind farm, after about 12 years, becomes uneconomic to run.
So there's an additional cost there then.
And then 15 years for onshore, 15 years. And so if your pension fund invested in that, you'll spend the first 12 or 15 years getting back your money, and then you look into the next 15 years of profit. It ain't there. So your fingers have been burnt, so you don't reinvest. So the biggest wind farm company now, the Danish one, is now been shedding itself of as much of the industry.
Ørsted, is it Ørsted?
Ørsted, yeah. They've been selling off as much as they possibly can because it's a scam. And you've got to have a new innocent public, haven't you? You've got to have a new innocent investor. And that's what it's about. So you have to look, that's what I do. I look at the economics of it all behind everything as well. So, and so it's a complete picture I do try to give, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
Well, I think we're almost out of time here, Brian. I don't know if you've got one more question you want to ask.
If there's any of the questions. Net zero targets. I mean, I think it answers itself really, because if you just want to control people, then you have to put in regulations that require that they reduce their energy consumption. And of course, low energy economies are subsistence economies. They're not profitable. They don't grow. And we are moving to a situation really now where our economy is spiraling down in a deindustrialization cycle, which is being fed by the government's crazy policies, because they talk about growth all the time, but all of their policies are actually designed to stifle growth.
Totally. In fact, economically, we should, my plan, I'm doing a series on economics, and my plan is to have this country within 5 years of a government be the best place in the world to do business. But to do that, you've got to understand the strategy. So I would rather have a lot of rich people here paying 30 times more income tax, the 1% paying 30 times more. I'd need more of them, you know. And I want people to come here and say this is the best place to live and do business in the world. That'll give prosperity. And prosperity in the end is about productivity. And that productivity of the looms back in the time when steam power came in, gave us the wealth. And in the same way, we need that today. And if you look your point is spot on. If you look at the productivity, it's declining all the time. It always does with the reduction of energy. Energy is critical to
absolutely. Our economy, our whole industrial ecosystem, if you want to call it that, is founded on cheap, reliable, dispatchable energy, which is not what renewables provide because they're intermittent. So you're basically compromising the system by introducing the unreliability of reliably unreliable renewables instead of relying on dispatchable, guaranteed, stable energy from coal, from oil, from nuclear, you know, all of those conventional, stable, hydrocarbon-based resources.
If you look at AI is going to have a big productivity effect on office jobs, it ain't going to change the plumber or the electrician, by the way, but it's going to have a big effect in management. And that is, again, a lot of energy. So again, you only get the productivity of the AI because of the enormous amount of energy being used. So again, it's the energy, and you can actually have a direct relationship, and there is one, between the amount of energy per capita and the amount of productivity you get. It really is. And so, I can't make this up, how stupid some of the car makers have been, but I can't blame them either because of what they've had to suffer from government rules. Terrible. Terrible. And so I'm in a situation where you've got 2 cars in the family. I've got a Tesla, which I enjoy because I get on the road, go click, and it drives me. You know, it just drives. And I hate driving. Well, I live with a stepdaughter and wife who are petrol heads. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't like it.
Do they drive your Tesla, or do they have their own?
My wife, she was insured for it, and she's never driven it. She won't drive it. She hates it. All right. And I love it. And so that's it. So most of the time when we go out in the diesel. We've got a big estate diesel.
Yeah.
We go out in that. And but because I've got that, people are shocked. But in actual fact, it's purely because of the nerdy value, and because I'm 81, and it's probably going to be my last car, And so I want to go out with a bang. But my God, it's possible.
Well, I hope it's not because the battery goes into thermal runaway.
That's what you're going to get with the Chinese EVs. You're going to get a lot of that. The Chinese EVs, if you look at them, they're stacked up in China, acres and acres of them.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but the way we're handing over industry to China is beyond belief.
Oh, it's really sad.
Crazy. Absolutely. Sad. Yeah. But I think, I mean, I can understand how, you personally, an EV suits your needs, but to try to sort of force EVs on everyone for every purpose is just unreasonable. Let people make their own choice based on their own personal circumstances. That's what we should be doing.
Well, shall we treat that as a teaser for a second show, for a part 2? If you're up for it, Paul, would you be okay to come back in a couple of days' time, perhaps?
Yeah, fine. Love to have me. I'm sorry, I probably talk too much, but
no, it's really interesting and enjoyable. But please, when we do see you, one of the questions that I'm sure you'll be asking Valentina Zarkova is, okay, what does the science of solar activity, the solar physics of the activity of the sun say for projections of future climate?
Well, I'll be dealing with it in this video now with her. And it's, again, as you know, I mean, can I just say, it's very unusual for me to be in a podcast with people who know the subject. That is extremely unusual, I'll tell you. Right? It really is, because some of the...
We're not at primary school.
No, I'm not being rude. I'm actually praising, but, it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. Yeah. But in actual fact, the cycles, as you know, are multiple cycles. They can cancel each other out and so on. I'm dealing with that. What happened before I came on here is I chose this sun background because that's the start. It's part of the start of the title of my Valentina video. Are you with me? And I had it handy, so I just shoved it behind me. Because otherwise you'd see my total office in a mess that the wife...
I'd just like to point out, Paul, this isn't my house.
He's got one of these virtual backgrounds. I didn't get rid of the kind of position.
My office I've got things lying around everywhere.
Yeah. Same.
I'm the same. It goes with the name.
We must get you back after. Well, if you send us the video, I'll be interested to see the Zarkova video, because she's a very interesting astronomer and solar physicist with a huge amount of experience. Based at Northumbria, isn't she? Northumbria University.
In Northumbria, yeah.
Yeah.
And she actually almost suffered a dismissal. Yeah, almost suffered a dismissal. And so a bit of a Peter Ridd, but she managed to get through it. But she didn't have a good experience, because science today in universities ain't science.
No. Ideology. It's a bit like the Spanish Inquisition.
It blinking well is. Yeah. Blinking well is. So I'm hoping, in a way, maybe
maybe we should say we'll hold back the country chair for next time.
Yeah, we're just about to hit an hour, so I think what we'll do is we'll call that today. But Paul, really seriously, we would love to have you back.
We would love you to come back. It would be really good. Maybe we should do a sort of a 4-way or something. Get Tom, Nelson, Valentina, and yourself on. That would be good.
That'll be like herding cats.
I think Tom. It would be.
Consider me herding cats with some scientific knowledge, which would be refreshing.
No, I mean, Tom's a great guy.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Very bored.
Well, thanks for your time today, Paul, and we will hopefully catch up with you very soon. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Paul. That's been excellent. Thank you.